It has been a while since I have played a game that has so profoundly changed my perspective on video games. And Metal Gear Solid did just that, feeling like the missing puzzle piece that I have longed for that connects the story-rich but limited games of the 2D era to the hyper-detailed movie-like 3D games of this modern era. And I am honestly stunned at what they were able to accomplish with this game in 1998. It's also a pretty dumb idea for me to make this video. Most of my audience I have cultivated on this channel has probably not played Metal Gear Solid, but you definitely should if you haven't. But this should be proof to you how important it is and how excited I am to make this video, because I just can't stop myself. Metal Gear Solid for the PS1 is an amazing, timeless classic, and pretty much everything from the gameplay to the storytelling and directing has had me impressed and just in awe. And I am incredibly disappointed with myself for not having played this game earlier. But my main point in this video is not to only explain why this PS1 masterpiece baffled me playing it for the first time in 2024, but also to make you OG fans feel as old as dirt itself. So with that being said, let's talk about
Metal Gear.
Like and subscribe if you like this video, and spoilers ahead for this video if you have not played Metal Gear Solid 1 before. Now first, I feel like I need to explain a bit why I have not played this amazing masterpiece before. Now the game came out in 1998, the same year as other epic masterpieces like Ocarina of Time and Half-Life, as well as future media juggernauts like Pokemon Red and Blue. But in 1998, I was 2, which you might criticize me for, but I promise I was actively trying to change that about myself. I did grow up with a PS1 though. Not that one, that one, oh dude. That's the one I used to play Need for Speed Hot Pursuit when I was like a 4 or 5 year old or whatever. Shit, I played that shit all the time. It was great. And let's get back to Metal Gear. Now the second reason is I was definitely intimidated or turned off by the game's prestige and fan base. Now I don't want to directly call you out or something in this video, but the intimidation came through just years and years of people saying this is one of the most influential games of all time. A title, while intriguing, does make you wonder before playing it. Is this game actually going to hold up when I play it? Now I have played older games before that were made before my time that honestly don't hold up, which is always disappointing. And the other is fans, which in particular I'm talking about one fan that feels the need to bring up Kojima onto stage every year at the Game Awards for that awkward 10-minute circle jerk. And I don't want to turn this into a Jeff Keighley bashing session, but as someone who has never experienced a Kojima game, it really did put a halt on me trying out this game and just brought up a lot of questions. Am I going to become a feral Kojima bootlicker if I play one of these games? Maybe. Some of you might not understand this because you've been Kojima stan since you were 8 years old, but the best way I think I can describe this in modern reality TV dating show terminology is this kind of whole thing just gave me the ick. Now that's just my shitty brain block going through, but that's where I was before playing this game, and I just wanted to be honest. That's how I was feeling before I played Metal Gear Solid. That being said, honestly, this year at the Game Awards, I would be totally happy and willing to lick Kojima's left shoe on stage with Jeff if he was willing. But needless to say, I was excited to try this game out, but overall, there was a bit of baggage, which is just kind of unfortunate. That all being said, now that I have finished this game, I wanted to go into each and everything I really enjoyed about this experience from start to finish as a first-time player. One of the good things for me starting this is I haven't really been spoiled on the story before, which is pretty remarkable, honestly. I couldn't say that about Final Fantasy VII for the first time that I played that. However, even in the first several minutes, though, this game just blows you away with the voice acting and direction. I know people said it was good, but after finishing the game, I can really say I didn't have a single issue with any of the performances in this game. Now, maybe that changes after a couple more playthroughs, but on this first one, not at all. The way David Hayter delivers his lines is just, it's just chef's kiss.
I'm relieved to hear that. Already tested, huh? By the way, how's the diversionary operation going?
And Snake is supposedly this emotionless, faceless super soldier, yet his voice acting and direction is just exuding charm, even with those weird, cheesy, one-off lines.
No, I'm serious. Well, I know I won't be bored for the next 18 hours.
And all the genetic misfits on the opposing side have just tons of personality and fun dialogue. And the main antagonist of the game, Liquid Snake, expertly uses the main signifier of a villain, a British accent expert.
If we nuke a major population center, the game's over.
His unhinged rants throughout the game just give you that James Bond feel that I love to see as a fan of spy and espionage movies. But now back to some of the camera work and direction, because that's something else I love about this game, and I know I've heard that Kojima is a huge film guy, and that love comes through just so well to make this game very timeless. Another thing I find when going back to these early 3D games especially is I feel that they weren't quite there yet in understanding how to use the camera to direct in a video game. Even in games like Yakuza 1, which came out after this, just seem a little comedic now with some of the camera work during cutscenes, and I absolutely love Yakuza 1, but certain scenes in the game just don't really flow well together. But in Metal Gear Solid, this shit just flows and connects so beautifully, enthralling me in every scene, and some of my favorites are that intro scene where Snake is getting briefed on the mission while arriving on Shadow Moses. It gripped me, and I even watched it several times throughout playing this game, just to remind myself of the earlier moments when some of the deception comes to light, and wondering how much of it was actually foreshadowed from the very beginning. Another one of my favorites is also that final scene after you finish fighting Sniper Wolf in the winter blizzard area, and I would have gladly shit my pants if it meant continuing to watch the scene from start to finish. Even halfway through this game, it just somehow convinces you that you just need to play it again, so you can pick up on all the subtle moments that are probably just littered throughout every scene. This is also an experience or game that I could see being very hard to remake and capture that charm. I wouldn't want to do that personally. Usually I am in favor of remakes for another reason to get new players to play the game, but one of the things I failed to mention that I was playing this in anticipation of the MGS3 remake that's coming out, and now I'm a little conflicted actually. After I've experienced this, I'm almost of the mindset that I should just continue on with the originals as nature intended. Would a remake of MGS1 also be able to capture those weird fourth wall breaking and cheesy lines? Would it be as impactful as your first time meeting characters like Gray Fox or Ocelot? And would the final scene and boss fight of the game just be ruined? I really don't know, but I'm glad that I played this original version, which, speaking of video game elements being bogged down by change, there are several moments in this game that, while fun, do kind of make them a bit eh. On the one hand, it is really cool that you're supposed to do things like find a code on the original game box or switch your controller to player 2, but in the modern era, playing this game on something like an emulator, it just really frustrates me. While cool, they're probably the main thing that I didn't really appreciate about this game, because I don't have the original box and I don't have a port for controller 2 since I'm playing on an emulator. So it kind of takes you out of the experience a bit, because after you get those lines, I'm just sitting there like, wait, what the heck am I supposed to do now? So I just have to stop and look it up or figure out the actual way to get through that scene. And it really messes with just the immersion of being in that scene. It would be one thing if I had to break that immersion to go actually check the game box, but now I'm checking a PNG file or something on my computer, and I don't know, something about that's just not quite as fun in this modern era, which is not totally the game's fault. I don't think Kojima was probably thinking about what are people going to think when they're playing this game in 2024, but it is something to just kind of be aware of, and something that makes the experience a little weird nowadays. And now I'm not going to do a complete breakdown of the story, mostly because it's my first time through and I know I missed stuff, but it's such a concise and shorter experience, more than I thought. Most of the time I was just hella immersed in this game, whether it was an info dump from Otakon about Metal Gears and technology, or the dialogue between characters like Meryl and Snake slowly finding the motivation to live and moving forward with their life. And there's really only one time that kind of slogs down the story's gears from turning, but I'll get to that later on, and really this game's story just holds up pretty well. One thing though I did worry that would not hold up about this game is the gameplay. I will be very upfront and honest with you, I didn't think that I would like the gameplay of this game. A somewhat top-down stealth action game with gunplay is just not something I'm used to nor really seek out. However, while this game isn't exactly the most mechanically in-depth or smoothest ever, I really enjoyed it. I was surprised at how well it actually held up, especially compared to something like Resident Evil 1, where, I don't know man, I just can't get used to things like tank controls. Those games just make me feel like I suck so bad and like I'm playing the game left-handed. And then there's also games like Final Fantasy VII, a game that I really love, and I didn't play it on release, but as a slightly older person when I did play it, there's just so many times where I had a hard time reading the screen and trying to figure out where I was actually supposed to go. But with Metal Gear Solid 1, just like a lot of the other 2D games of old, it's solid. It did admittedly take a little bit of getting used to. Moving around this mostly 2D space isn't that different from something like a Zelda game. Most of the guns have a slightly auto-aim system for you, making it snappy to target enemies. However, I did get frustrated several times while fighting some of the bosses especially. Using grenades to take on the tank is just kind of a hit or miss. So the hardest part is not being sure if Snake's actually going to throw the thing where you want him to, and there's not really a good estimated line path to show you where it's going to land. And using the PSG-1 sniper in the first Sniper Wolf fight was a little wonky for me at first, especially without the diazepam or whatever that you're supposed to use to help control the shaking around. And also using that controllable rocket launcher, the Nikita, for the first time to save Snake from asphyxiation took no less than 15 attempts to get through that section. But by the time I got to the end, I think I did pretty good for those final encounters that do require a little bit more finesse. Now, lots of the fights are kind of puzzly in nature, and maybe will end in some fisticuffs, like the first fight with Gray Fox. It's really puzzling at first because none of your guns are doing anything, and you're actually supposed to hit him with your fist. And this is when I learned that you could actually do a 3-hit combo with your fists in this game, which up until this point in the game, it's not that far ahead, but I had no idea that you could even do that. I'm not sure if I'm unique in my stupidity or incompetence in only finding out that you could do that right in this fight, but what are you gonna do? It's what happened. And the two final bosses were amazing from a story or spectacle level, but once you learn that all your weapons kind of seemingly don't do very much at all to the Metal Gear Rex, except for the chaff grenades and shooting the stinger into its metal tumor on its shoulder. I prefer final bosses that are a little bit more of a test for skills or abilities that you've gathered up until that point. But that being said, the fist fight against Liquid Snake atop the Metal Gear, it kind of makes up for that being maybe a little bit lackluster, with a boost of mano-y-mano, testosterone-infused, machismo action movie fisticuffs. And again, his British rants about genetics and all that are just classic action movie villainy. But back to moving around and actually playing the game, though it does have that Zelda-esque of finding new abilities in the world or guns, or finding the right key or security card to open the right door to move forward. Speaking of security cards, actually, there's these like a lot of techie aspects of this game where they're things like the cards supposedly use your sweat to open doors, and did we need this advanced explanation on how that worked? Not really, but I also think it's pretty unique and makes this very memorable, and there's tons of those things that are just kind of littered throughout the world. This game has a lot of almost childlike, or I don't know, that's probably not right. It has this like teen-like whimsy where it's a little bit edgy and fun, but also probably a little too overly complex than it really needs to be. But it is always fun going back to things like these older games and movies where you just wanted to see how they handle future tech. The stealth AI for this game, for a PS1 game, is also pretty surprising, at least from what I've played in this era. Enemies can hear Snake when he runs through something like a puddle or track his footprints in the snow. And on its own, this is not exactly jaw-dropping, but I didn't expect this level of detail from a PS1 era stealth game. Shit, even things like modern Assassin's Creed games that are coming out next year are kind of pretending like some of these features are new features that are going to be revolutionary or something like that. And Metal Gear Solid did it back in 1998. And I like how you can zoom into first-person mode to view the world in more detail, albeit the first time this was used for gameplay was to find a wall to place some C4, and again, I had a hard time finding that wall even with first person, but maybe that was just a skill issue. The most offensive portion of this game's design had to be, though, the backtracking. I could handle snaking back through the level to get the sniper, but the final key card, like, what the hell were they doing here? The multiple trips at the very end of the game to heat up the card or cool the card, to change the card's shape or whatever. This was just absolutely unnecessary padding that put a huge massive damper on this final sequence. This is also when you're gating some of the craziest turn of events in the story, which is great, but I was a little annoyed because I wanted to just get to those right away. And I don't know why this happened, but my theory is just that Kojima wanted to show off this weird temperature system in the game, and he hadn't really done that to this point, as well as slowly building up this who's the traitor thing, but it just didn't really sit right with me. Overall though, I really enjoyed the stealth action moving through this metallic tundra island, which is also pretty easy on the eyes for a PS1 game. And to end on a high note, the music in this game is another reason the whole thing just flows together so well. Some of it's just so iconic, like when you get spotted by an enemy, that it transcends the video game itself. Even the more calm and subtle pieces really bring together the heavy moments or death sequences. That's it though. Like I said in the very beginning, I was just baffled and wanted to talk about how much fun I had with this PS1 game. It truly does feel like a passing of the guard on how to tell or direct a story-based video game in the 3D era. And I'd love to hear any Metal Gear experts chime in down below, as this again is my first time, and I'm sure there's just so many little things that I missed throughout the game. And I just can't wait to play Metal Gear Solid 2 as well, with that solid cliffhanger post-credits thing. See ya.